Hey everybody, Adam Harris, ring announcer, collector, and wrestling fan here in the Mountain State. Welcome back to the channel. Went to a car show this weekend, some sports cards, non-sports cards at the Barbersville Mall, and I brought home a couple of classic pieces. The newest, oldest pieces in my collection have arrived. I'm going to show you those at the end of the video. I did not expect necessarily to come home with those, but I will show you what I ended up with at the end of the video. Did you guys see that video of Batista's lunch boxes? Man, that was cool. And I think he said a lot of really neat stuff about uh, being a collector and what it means to collect the things that you love. I got to head to Nashville for work this week, and it's got me thinking about a couple things. One, how Nashville, before it was Music City, Nashville was a wrestling town, and I'm going to talk a little bit about an article that I read in the Nashville scene and West Virginia War Games. That's right, it's happening at All Star Wrestling, and we're going to talk about it here on the channel. Welcome back. So I got to go to Nashville this week, and every time I think about going to Nashville, I think about this amazing article that I read in the Nashville scene. It came out in May of 2019 by a writer named J.R. Lind, and they were tearing down the Nashville Fairgrounds back in 2019, and JR wrote this incredible history of wrestling in Nashville. There's a great quote I'm going to read you. Pro wrestling has been a part of the Nashville cultural landscape since long before Goulas and Welch put on that first show, which netted the pair $88 outside of the old Hippodrome on the West End. The earliest indication of big time wrestling in the city of Nashville came on April 26, 1907, when world welterweight champion Al Ackerman battled Canadian champ Fred Bartel on the venerable stage of the Ryman Auditorium. How about that? Giuseppe Creatore, one of the most famous band leaders in the world at the time, and his band performed in between rounds. Thus, wrestling has a far longer history here than even the city's best known cultural contributions. The Bristol Sessions wouldn't invent country music until 1927, and the Grand Ole Opry didn't debut until 1925, and it didn't come to the Ryman until 1943. That's really cool. I'll put a link to this article in the description so that you can go check it out. I love this article. A ton of cool wrestling history out of Nashville, obviously. And it also made me think about the time I went to a pay-per-view with my wife in Nashville, and I went to look it up, and turns out it was 10 years ago. I was at Night of Champions 2014 at the Bridgestone Arena while I was in Nashville. It was right around this time, 10 years ago. And I think that was my first pay-per-view, WWE Night of Champions. Really cool event. And I went back and watched some of it back this week because I don't have a lot of vivid memories of it. I definitely remember Chris Jericho was being there. I remember it was Brock versus Cena, which was cool. And so I went and watched it. And the match that opens the card is really cool. It's the Usos, Jay and Jimmy, against Gold and Stardust. So two guys, all four guys, still in the business, still on top of their respective companies right now. Dustin Rhodes having another career renaissance right now. But at this time, Cody and Dustin won the tag belts in front of my very eyes and ears against the Usos in a heck of an opener. You really should check out this match. It's really fun. But as soon as Dustin Rhodes came out, I recognized the gear from what is a 2015 Elite figure with the hood and the face paint. Just such a distinct set of ring gear. And as soon as he came out, I was like, oh man, because I love Dustin Rhodes stuff. I've been collecting Gold Dust stuff, got to meet him in June. And I've always had my eye on this figure, and I've even seen it in real life in the wild before, but I didn't pick it up. But now, knowing that I was there for that match where he wore that gear, I've got to get a hold of that figure at some point. So that one's going to be coming into the collection here very soon. I had such a great time at Night of Champions. I've always had a good time when I go to see WWE live, and I've been to a lot of live events, and it's too bad, and it's really sad to me that WWE announced earlier, or I guess last week sometime, that they were cutting back on their live events. In other words, the non-televised live events that usually come to arenas in smaller towns like Charleston, West Virginia, or like Ashland, Kentucky, or Wheeling, West Virginia. Those have been a staple of the WWE's offerings for a long time. And it was announced earlier this week by one of the executives at WWE, Mark Shapiro, who said, we're taking away our low marginal, marginally profitable events, especially untelevised events that Vince McMahon had put in place to grow the brand. And they said they did 300 last year. It'll be roughly 250 this year, and they expect it to be around 200 next year. And that's all according to the Sportster. It says good for talent, probably best for business, but fewer people will have the chance to see their favorite wrestlers due to the opportunity and to costs. And that's the way I feel about it. I mean, I do feel good that the workers won't necessarily have to be out on the road away from their families so much. But man, especially with ticket prices going up, which is another part of this article, you know, WWE may be mirroring the UFC ticket formula going forward, and that's just going to price out some people. That's just the way it is. These big, huge arena events, not everybody can afford a ticket to that. And so I think it's unfortunately the families with less resources who are unfortunately not going to be able to go see the WWE. And I'm so thankful for the times I got to go. I was glad WCW was doing house shows back in the day when I went to my first show in 1992. One day maybe I'll do a review of that entire card because some legends on there that I've actually got to work with several of them since becoming a ring announcer about 9 years ago. But, you know, if wrestling fans can't go to see WWE up close and in person, then maybe they're going to become independent wrestling fans. Maybe they'll be more likely to check out their local promotions like ASW. And earlier, ASW announced a big event for November the 22nd, I believe. ASW just announced officially War Games at the Madison Civic Center in November. That's right. Chance Prophet and Casey King are going to be leading their teams of 5 into what is going to be a 2-ring, 2-cage main event from All Star Wrestling. I'll put a link to the Facebook in the comments so that you can check that out and make plans to be there if you are anywhere within driving distance. I don't know if it's been done on the indie scene. It certainly hasn't been done here in West Virginia, to my knowledge, a War Games match to this degree. So that's all coming up in November and from All Star Wrestling. And speaking of Chance Prophet, he was on Slam Plaza, which I reviewed in the previous video. Be sure to go back and check that out. 2 of the wrestlers that wrestled for us at Slam Plaza 3 just went to Guadalajara, Mexico. Really cool. Chance Prophet and Micah, who is the Regatta Pro Wrestling Women's Champion, and Chance Prophet, a legend of this area, with unmatched credentials really from here. With a gentleman named Troy Markham, took them down to Guadalajara to appear on an event that was co-promoted with CMLL. Really cool to get to follow their escapades down there. It looks like Micah got in the ring with Tessa Blanchard, which is really cool. And just wanted to say congratulations to those guys for representing West Virginia all the way over south of the border in Mexico. Really cool, and I can't wait to hear more about how their trip went. Congratulations to those guys. Since I hope it's Jim Cornette's birthday when we upload this, I am going to show you a couple cool magazine pieces that I have of Jim Cornette, including a really cool centerfold from a 1989 Pro Wrestling Illustrated. But first, I wanted to tell you a little bit about the card show I went to in Barbersville, West Virginia, put on by a gentleman named Nathan Freeman, who runs Freeman's Sports Cards and Collectibles. He's got his own shop in downtown Huntington. But man, he runs these sports card shows throughout the state of West Virginia, in Morgantown, in Parkersburg, and then also in Barbersville, which is only about 40 minutes from me. They happen throughout the year, and I haven't been able to go to very many this year. But I've been going since I started collecting again, which is in about 2021 sometime. And it's been fun to watch the amount of wrestling cards grow at these card shows. And you see a lot of the same dealers, but then some new ones come along. And I've been able to see the popularity of wrestling cards grow a lot, actually, just in the community from going to these card shows. I always have a blast. I've picked up so many neat cards from people that I've gotten to know over the years, including Kenny McCoy, who's an amazing former wrestler who's got an incredible wrestling collection and has been in the game for a long time. He's my favorite person to go talk shop with. He used to ride around with Terry Bam Bam Gordy. He's got a ton of cool stories and still follows wrestling to this day. So like me, he's still a fan. But I picked up a couple cards. I did not go in expecting to grab anything in particular. I wasn't really looking for anything besides the people that I collect. But I got to talking with this guy named Rex, and I'd looked through his cards before. Actually, if you go back to one of the logs I did a couple years ago, one of the card show vlogs, you can see some of his old boxing stuff. in one of those display cases. And this time I asked him, is there any wrestlers included in some of these early sets? And he goes, yeah, there's one. I think it's called Pugilists and Wrestlers. I think there might be a few wrestlers in there. And there's a whole stack of these cards, old tobacco looking cards. I could have done a little more research probably before deciding to make the impulse purchase. But I was able to find two of the cards that he had were indeed of wrestlers from back in the day. And I've since figured out and done some more research that these are the 1908-09 Ogden Pugilists and Wrestlers tobacco card set. And Ogden is a branch of the Imperial Tobacco Company of the United Kingdom. So these were released in the UK. Show them up here. I'm going to give you some better pictures in the video. Picked up two guys, Tommy Monk and also Jim Essen, who I admittedly didn't know anything about them. We read the backs of the cards and were able to figure out that these two were wrestlers. And when I got to looking at the set, it's really a few things that make this set popular, one of which is an early card of Jack Johnson, the famous boxer. He's in this set. And then it's funny, there's also one of the most sought after cards of the whole set is of a guy named Abe Attell, I think. It's Abe Attell. And he's one of the more sought after cards in the set because he helped fix the 1919 World Series. Perhaps that's what he's best known for. I can't imagine you would be known for anything else once you've been connected with fixing a World Series. So that card is a part of the set. And there are the two most famous wrestlers in the set are George Hackenschmidt and Frank Gotch, I believe. And the Hackenschmidt card is so cool. He's like a side profile looking back over his shoulder like this. Such cool artwork. And of course, it's drawings like these are. But the Hackenschmidt card is so cool. I don't know if I'll ever be able to afford one of those. They go for a pretty penny and not a lot of them out there, especially in non-graded raw condition. But it was cool to find out about this. And, and these cards are from 1908. So they're officially the oldest pieces in my collection by about 60 years. I've got a cool retro poster from 1969, and now the oldest piece in my collection are these two 1908-09 Ogden tobacco cards. But I will be adding that George Hackenschmidt card to my saved eBay searches for sure. So as I'm recording this, we're headed into Jim Cornette's birthday, and I know he's a controversial figure in the world of wrestling. I will always love Jim Cornette. Some of the earliest wrestling I went to was Smoky Mountain Wrestling in the Beckley, Raleigh County Armory. And so I'll always have an emotional connection to him. Don't hate me for it. I know he's divisive, but he's always been one of my favorites. I don't agree with everything he says. Like I don't agree with everything you say probably, and you won't agree with everything I say. But he's a legend in the business and one of my favorites of all to listen to in his podcast and also to go back and watch. So for his birthday, I thought I would take a look back at this issue of Pro Wrestling Illustrated from 1988. And of course, the Midnight Express is on fire at this time, and they have the centerfold right there. Beautiful Bobby and sweet Stan with the Louisville Slugger himself, Jim Cornette. Of course, in the close-up section, it talks about their greatest match, which it says is May 16th, 1987 versus Barry Windham and Ronnie Garvin. Well, we're going to have to look that up, I think. Favorite maneuver, the rocket launcher, of course. Stan would launch Bobby off the top rope into the big splash. Most hated opponents, the Rock and Roll Express. I didn't even know who that was. And then, of course, their toughest opponents, the Road Warriors, who outweighed them by nearly 100 pounds here, it says for sure. No doubt. Some legendary feuds between those guys. The Midnights, amazing. Jim Cornette and the Midnight Express. Happy birthday to Jimmy Cornette, the Louisville Slugger. I hope it's a good one for him. I know he's watching this right now. He consumes all of my content the same way I consume all of his. So that's it for now. I'm headed to Nashville this week. Maybe do something on the PWI 500 for our next video, and then I'll recap. Hopefully get to check out some shopping in Nashville. Last year, I picked up some cards at the Target down in Nashville, and I pulled a Darby Allin auto. So we'll see if I can keep my good luck going this year. Until next time, thanks again for watching the video. Be sure to go check out the previous ones, like and subscribe, and come see us at the matches. See you next time.